Dan and Amy, good morning. Everything I learned about being a stay-at-home dad, I know from Michael Keaton and Mr. Mom. I assume that's still prevailing, the prevailing approach for stay-at-home dads. There are more than 2 million of them. I learned from reading about Shannon Carpenter and his new book. Shannon Carpenter is a stay-at-home dad since 2008, and he's also a humorist who is trained through our famous Second City troupe. He joins us now to talk about his new book, The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad, Your Essential Manual for Being an Awesome Full-Time Father. Shannon, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here, man.
So is that about it? If you watch Mr. Mom, you get the gist of it?
That's not even close. Yeah, I mean, it's a funny movie, and I get that. But, yeah, it's not real life, and it's, 30-plus years old now? So, yeah.
Yeah, things have evolved since then. Okay. Well, so you've been at this for the better part of a decade and a half, so give the fathers out there some insights.
It was a chance for me to be actively involved every day in my kid's life, and that's kind of why I did it. And that's what I love about it. So I get to be here for all those milestones, but I get to actually teach those through those hard moments myself. So I like to joke around that my kids all look like my wife, but they all act like me, which means they're kind of loud, we break stuff, and it's okay because we embrace those failures. And so on a day-to-day basis, that's kind of what we've been doing for the last 10 years.
Yeah, but I mean, do you really want to hang out with all of those? I don't know if you're in the suburbs or the city. There's not much difference. All those women at Starbucks and at the park and stuff. Isn't that grating?
It's not as much because you don't have to do it as stay-at-home dad is the way society expects you to. I don't have to go to the park every day or Starbucks. Actually, I never go. I learned that early on that those things like the mall playground just were not working for me. I would go to the mall playground and it just killed me inside, right? So what we started doing is doing our own thing. So we would go to a Civil War battlefield, which is just a giant field, right? Kids love giant fields. And what I tell new dads is look, you got to remember that the attraction is you. Wherever you go, they're going to be happy, because that is where you're at. You are the jungle gym and the bodyguard all rolled into one.
And the other thing about the book, you compile the experiences, not just your own, but of some 50 other stay-at-home fathers from across the country. So you've created a little working group, if you will, to, I guess, develop best practices.
Yeah, we did. I have my own personal dad's group, which I joined because I couldn't join a mom's group. I could never get in. I didn't get a response as we were told no. So we started our own dad's group, and I've been with the same group of guys for 13 years now. We vacation together. And so after every chapter, those guys come in and give their best advice. Now, when I was writing the book, and depending on what chapter I was in, we would debate topics for days on what was good to put in there and what we should not put in there. And that kind of was a way to vet the advice. And then there's 57 other dads that just gave me their best tip or life hack. And that was what I was really looking for.
Now, can you technically be a full-time stay-at-home dad if you also have a nanny and a maid?
I don't know. I assume you can if you can afford it. Sure. Most of us don't have a nanny or a maid. We're kind of all that rolled into one, same as a stay-at-home mom, I think. And so, yeah, I would guess so.
All right, so you do the cooking and you do the cleaning and you plan the day. You're doing all that.
Yes, I'm doing everything from start to finish. And even now, my kids are older now, so I've been staying home that a long time. I have a 15, a 14, and an 8-year-old, and I'm still doing it.
All right, so when they age out, when they go off to college or something, are you still going to try to keep up the stay-at-home dad thing with your wife, or is she not going to buy that at that point?
I don't know. It was one of those things we're going to get into college first, and then we'll reevaluate. Because, again, that's another thing I tell dads, that you're not stuck into this. Once you start to be a stay-at-home dad, you can quit a month later. You can quit 3 weeks later. My initial impression was I'll keep writing. I'll keep writing books, and that's what I'll do full-time.
And how does mom, are you able, because you're the stay-at-home dad, if the kids say, Mom, Dad did this and Dad did that, and try to get you in trouble, you have the trump card to say, well, look, I'm at home with the kids, so you're just going to have to defer to my judgment on this.
When that does come up, I honestly don't care because I'm dad and I have no qualms about doing it the way I do it. And if someone wants to step in and try to do it their way, that's fine. but my way works for me, and that's the way I go with it. So I don't really worry about, is Dad going to get in trouble because I'm here every day.
So, with the conversations you've had with other stay-at-home
Mhm.
dads around the country, what are some of the common challenges, pitfalls, the things that stay-at-home dads struggle with?
So isolation is the biggest one. Being a dad can be isolating. As any dad knows, it's hard to make dad friends. And being a stay-at-home dad is kind of even worse with that because you're home all day. And how do you find that support in that community? And luckily, City Dads Groups is one of the community builders that kind of make that happen. So that is certainly a struggle. And I think the other one is just the grind of day-to-day parenting. It can be very boring. Washing dishes and cooking meals is just not mentally stimulating. So I encourage fathers to get out every day, to do things that they want to do and incorporate their kids into that kind of activity so they keep their mental health up.
Yeah, and so talk a little bit more about that. I mean, obviously you have your kids start to develop things they like, hobbies and extracurriculars they like
Sure.
to do, and maybe you're not as proficient in something they want to do as mom is, and so how do you? I mean, it's just the reverse of a stay-at-home mom, but so how do
Oh, yeah.
you deal with that?
Oh, YouTube covers everything. Like my daughter liked to sew, for example. I have these big gorilla hands, and I don't sew, so I taught myself to sew. You can teach yourself. You got time, right? And there are other things like that too, like soccer, for example. My sons played soccer, and I coached those teams for a very long time. I have never played soccer on any kind of rec league, but again, I got my dads together. We talked it out. I figured out what to do. I watched a lot of videos, and you teach yourself as you go. Like I tell guys that, yeah, I can bake you a tart because I taught myself how to do that. I can sew a pillowcase because I taught myself to do that. I can also remodel your bathroom, and I can build you a deck, check your deck. That's what I can do.
And I mean, do you get do you deal with hey, why aren't you at work? Not just from your kids, but from other moms and dads that you're friendly with in among your kids' friends at school and such.
Every once in a while, the funny thing is it took my kids a long while to realize that not every father stayed home. Like my daughter was all the way in like third grade when she kind of made the connection that it was mostly stay-at-home moms, and she thought that was weird. So the kids, it's just normal for them, and it's normal for me as well. With some of the comments that have come up, on occasion, people have called me unemployed. I was at a doctor's office, and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I stayed home dad." They said, "Oh, you're unemployed," and I was like, "No, I have a job. I just don't get paid for it." Everyone who's a stay-at-home parent knows that this is a job, and I treat it as a job. So that's my usual response to that. It's like, nope, I'm working.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I like that. Now, what are some of the experiences you think that your kids are having with you being the stay-at-home parent versus what they wouldn't be having if your wife was the stay-at-home parent?
We're more
Do you do do you do like spontaneous weekend benders in Atlantic City or something like that?
No, but I have stayed the night in the casino with them because it was a cheap hotel. So we did do that. So the way we do things is a lot more adventurous. For example, I build medieval siege weapons with all our kids. There's 16 different kids. So we've shot ballistas, which is a giant crossbow with flaming arrows, and those types of things. And then the places we go are more adventurous. There's a bridge out in Missouri. It's an 88-year-old wooden suspension bridge that you can drive across, and it takes some time to find it. But it was completely fun, and the kids love that memory. And I think those are not the things that my wife would do with them, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's kind of cool. I wonder, so do your kids' friends say, I want to come over to your place after school and do the stuff that your dad's doing with you because it sounds, as you're saying, a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more fun. It involves weapons, probably alcohol, guns, things like that.
It actually happens all the time. We built a trebuchet, and we had all the neighbor kids ran over to shoot it and to help build it. And then in the summer, a lot of times I'll grab my kids' friends. They're home for the summer as well, and so we set up play dates, and I just take them on whatever adventure we're going on. And with my dad's, we have 16 kids, and I add another 4, so that puts us up to like 20.
Wow.
So yeah, that actually does happen.
That's cool. And so I mean, one of the things you put emphasis on a serious note is, and you were starting to speak about it, the isolation and focusing on mental health. Just talk a little bit more about that, about what you've experienced and some preventative care that needs to be done.
So with the mental health, like I said, isolation kind of has a way of making you think the worst things about yourself. You just kind of fixate on that. And so isolation is not a good thing, right? So the first tip I always say is find you guys. There's plenty of ways to do it. It's all in the book. City Dads groups is the biggest one to start with. And then take other proactive steps, and it's simple things like letting sunlight in, like getting out of the house every day, finding those rewards in your everyday life that make everything worth it, and then get those checkups. Go see a therapist, man. There's no shame in that, and that kind of stigma attached with men's mental health needs to go. And there's a agency called Movember that is doing really good work with that advocates for men's mental health, and they have a lot of resources to get you help. So I always encourage dads to do that. And I point out in the book is I do that. I go for my checkups. I go to my therapist to work things out when my head's crowded. That's what I do.
Well, during the last year and a half of COVID with the lockdowns and such, do you think it presented? I mean, it presented challenges for all parents, moms and dads. But did it present any unique challenges? Do you think to you as a stay-at-home dad?
Actually, I count myself one of the really lucky ones because I had all three kids here doing virtual school, so I was able to bounce between high school, middle school, and elementary school and teach and help. And there were so many kids on that Zoom call whose both parents were working or mom or dad needed to sleep because they had to work that night. And it broke my absolute heart. As hard as it was for me, for working parents or single parents, it was 10 times as hard. And I just the most respect to those people going out right now. I don't know how they did it. I had a hard time, and that it was easier here for me than it was for them.
If I may ask, what does your wife do for a living?
She's in advertising. So when we go back to the Mr. Mom thing, my wife actually does sell stuff. She's an advertising executive.
and is there ever any tension about household finances? Like, and this goes in the other direction too. The idea, boy, it'd be nice if you had a part-time job. We could use a little extra money to save for college or what have you.
There was never that kind of conversation because we were both committed 100% to having someone home. So there was never that kind of conversation. But there were conversations about money, and there was tension about how we should spend that money. Well, we're running low. What are we going to do? What are we going to cut back on? And that happened more at the beginning when you're learning what works and what doesn't. And some of those emotionally charged kind of arguments can happen or discussions. And what my wife and I found is when you're going to have those emotionally charged discussions, hold hands. It's really hard to yell or be mad when you're holding hands with someone. Then you can actually work the problem as a team and not have the problem work both of you separately.
Oh, very interesting. Shannon Carpenter, he's a stay-at-home dad since 2008, raising his three kids. Humor writer trained through the famous Second City troupe in Chicago, of course. His book, The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad, Your Essential Manual for Being an Awesome Full-Time Father. Shannon, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the book. Appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
You've made the switch, and it feels so good. You've switched to Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Should I refinance or should I just ignore all these annoying commercials? Here's Uncle Ryan.
I think of one friend in particular. He refinanced maybe 3 or 4 years ago. He got a very good interest rate at the time, and he's like, should I do it again? I don't want to be bothered with the hassle. And I looked into it. He originally 3 or 4 years ago did a 30-year loan, and with rates coming